Sometimes you're in the middle of a lively chat and suddenly you're stuck on a topic that feels flat or awkward. Maybe it's a conversation that's veering into uncomfortable territory or just losing its spark. But don't worry, it happens to everyone. The key is learning how to redirect the conversation smoothly. That's where the technique of thread cutting comes in, helping you navigate these tricky moments without skipping a beat. Think of it as your conversational escape route, a technique that helps you pivot away from bad topics and back onto more engaging, fun, or neutral ground. Thread cutting is a skill that allows you to redirect the conversation without making it feel forced or awkward. Instead of staying stuck in a topic that isn't working, you can smoothly shift to something else that keeps the energy flowing. Thread cutting is the process of shifting away from a topic that's not connecting well, or that's heading in an uncomfortable direction, and moving toward a new subject. The key to thread cutting is ensuring that you don't completely dismiss the previous topic or make the person feel unheard. You want to be subtle, considerate, and aware of the other person's emotions. A simple way to think of it is like steering a ship away from a rough patch of water and back into smoother seas. It's not about ignoring or avoiding the tough topics completely. It's about changing course without causing unnecessary friction. The do's and don'ts of thread cutting. Before we dive into specific examples, let's first cover some basic guidelines for successful thread cutting. Do's. Acknowledge the emotion first. When someone brings up a sensitive or negative topic, always start by acknowledging their emotions. This shows that you're empathetic and that you care about how they feel. This is essential when thread cutting because if you skip over their feelings, it can come off as dismissive. Shift to something neutral or fun. Once you've acknowledged their emotion, gently guide the conversation to something that feels lighter or more neutral. It could be something that relates to what they've said, or you could introduce a fresh topic. The goal is to steer the conversation in a direction that doesn't feel like a detour. Don'ts. Immediately ignore the topic. Jumping from one subject to another without acknowledging the person's state of mind can feel abrupt. If someone tells you about something stressful in their life, you can't just change the topic to something light and unrelated without acknowledging the emotional tone. This could make them feel like you're not listening or don't care about what they're saying. Jump to a completely different subject. It's easy to get carried away and make a sudden leap from one topic to another, but that can feel jarring. Thread cutting works best when you make a smooth transition, keeping the flow of the conversation intact. Examples of thread cutting in action. Let's look at some real-world examples of how to use thread cutting effectively. Example 1. Shifting away from stress. Imagine you're talking to someone and they say, "I'm so stressed out. Work has been crazy." If you immediately start talking about your own stressful work situation, you might just amplify the negativity. Thread cutting response. I can totally relate to the work stress. That really sucks. So, what do you do to unwind after those crazy days? Here, you've acknowledged their stress and then redirected the conversation towards something positive, like relaxation. Example 2. Moving past negative complaints. Let's say the conversation takes a turn when she says, "I can't believe how awful this year has been." This could easily lead to a heavy, negative conversation, but thread cutting can help you move things forward. Thread cutting response. That sounds rough, but hey, what's something fun you've done recently to take your mind off all the craziness? By validating her feelings and quickly moving to something more enjoyable, you prevent the conversation from dragging on in a bad direction. Example 3. Switching from a sensitive topic. You might find yourself on a delicate topic, like her family situation, and it starts to feel uncomfortable. Rather than continuing down this path, you can use thread cutting to gracefully transition. Thread cutting response. That sounds like a tough situation. I'm sure you've learned a lot from it. So, what's something you're looking forward to this year? Again, the key is acknowledging the emotion but shifting focus to a more hopeful or positive subject. Why thread cutting is so powerful. Thread cutting isn't about being rude or avoiding tough conversations. It's about being conversationally agile and keeping things light, engaging, and positive. The benefits of using thread cutting are huge. prevents awkward silences. When you can smoothly transition away from topics that aren't landing, you prevent those long, uncomfortable pauses that often signal an awkward conversation. Keeps the mood up. Instead of allowing the conversation to take a negative turn, thread cutting helps maintain a lighthearted atmosphere, which makes interactions more enjoyable for both parties. Helps build rapport. When you acknowledge someone's feelings and then help redirect the conversation to something more positive or neutral, it shows you're in tune with their emotional state. This strengthens the connection between you. How to make thread cutting a natural part of your conversations. Like any conversational skill, thread cutting takes practice. Start by paying attention to moments where a topic isn't working, whether it's boring, awkward, or just not something the other person is responding to well. Here are some tips for making thread cutting feel more natural. Be observant. Always be aware of how the other person is reacting. If they seem uncomfortable, that's a good signal it might be time to shift the topic. Use humor. Humor can be an excellent tool for easing tension and making the transition feel more natural. Just make sure it's light and appropriate for the situation. Practice active listening. When you're listening actively, you'll pick up on emotional cues and the overall flow of the conversation, which will help you make a smoother transition. Conclusion. Thread cutting is an essential conversational tool that allows you to keep things light, engaging, and stress-free. It ensures that you don't get stuck in awkward silences or uncomfortable topics, and it lets you shift focus in a way that strengthens your connection with the person you're talking to. By mastering the art of thread cutting, you'll be able to steer conversations with ease, build better rapport, and make every interaction feel more fluid and enjoyable. So, the next time you feel the conversation heading into awkward territory, remember, with thread cutting, you've got the tools to change direction and keep things on track.